have a little bit of a cold, so we're going with the mint tea today. Hello, I'm Kate. Welcome back to my channel. And today I figured I would film a quick, easy, fun, weird, potentially other adjectives Q&A based off of the questions that y'all asked me over on Instagram almost a month ago. So I will leave timestamps down below in case you want to check out a specific question, but otherwise it's going to be a free-for-all. And let's freaking get started. Question 1, is there a genre you want to write in but haven't yet? Because I dabble in so many genres, I do think it's like a personal bucket list item to actually write in all of them at some point. But quite frankly, historical intimidates me. So if there were to be the last one on the list, which is not quite the question asked, but I'm gonna answer it that way, it would be historical. Otherwise, I have attempted sci-fi before, and I do think someday I would like to get back into sci-fi. Why, how am I learning tarot? I have always been fascinated by tarot and or just reading the signs for anything. I just think that's very cool. There's so many different cultures that use a form of tarot or a form of predictions, and I just think that's really cool. I've really loved getting to know more about my oracle cards, and I feel like I have a specific like connection to my Lunar Nomad oracle deck. And so I wanted to try and learn tarot, which is more sort of generalized, something that can be spread across multiple decks rather than having one specific deck with individual meanings for the cards. You want a card here? I think it's also a fun reflection point back to yourself. While I don't totally believe in the predictive powers, I think no matter who you are, the cards are reflecting back information that you want to hear or need to hear based on your own mind coming up with it, right? So anyways, I think it's so helpful. And yeah, it's just fun. The cards are pretty. I like pretty things. Yes. Do I want more pets? Well, as I have an adorable Buffy dog, adorable Zelda sausage, an adorable Venti kitten, I think 3 might be the max. When we had Duke with the other 2 dogs, I think that really felt good. So we wanted to get the cat and have a 3rd one again, but I can't imagine having more than that. I especially can't imagine having more than that in our current space. So yeah, I think 3 is probably it. Meow. Well, hello, my baby girl. What first got you into puzzles? The pandemic. My mom was really into puzzles when I was a kid, so I guess, but I always thought they were kind of boring, and arguably they're still like kind of boring from the lens of that me. There's something about getting in the zone with a puzzle and hours can just go by and you just let go of everything else that I really love. So it's kind of meditative in that aspect. Or I like to multitask it with like listening to a podcast or watching my trash TV or whatever else I like to do. And it's just something nice to like kind of keep my hands busy and sort of channel my fidgeting into the puzzle. How do sponsorships work? Oh, the oven's done. My poppers. One moment. Set a timer for 35 minutes.
35 minutes, starting now.
All right, first things first, the email. I probably get an email every few days asking what my rates are, or like if I'd like their product and would show it off or whatever else. Most of the time they look kind of like this one where they don't even personalize who they're sending it to, and actually this one did one worse where they actually put all the other people in the to line, didn't even BCC them. So anyways, and this one's for like stones or crystals or something. I would say 90 to 95% of the emails I get, they're not this bad, but they're ones that I either wouldn't do because it's not at all related to the channel and I'm almost like, how did you find me? Or they're like this. And then I'd say there's probably 5 to 10% that seem pretty legit. And even amongst the legit ones that I think I would like that company and we vibe well with whoever sent me the email, sometimes I'm still busy. I have too much on my workload and I couldn't do another sponsorship. But in the cases that it's like pretty legit, I do try to go on to the next step. From the email, you have the ask. This is where you find out, even amongst the legit ones, that either they just want to give you product sometimes, which is fine if I really love the product or really want the product, but also like I cannot pay bills in the product. It's also asking what kind of video they want. Is it an integrated mention where it's just like 60 to 90 seconds talking about the product and not necessarily mentioning them in the rest of the video? Is it a dedicated video, which I've only done once before, where it's all about showing off the specific product and how it's used and things like that? Normally, if that's what the person wants in their ask, I just say no. Once I know what they want, it is time to negotiate. I was watching a live stream where two booktubers were talking all about sponsorships and all about making money on booktube. I will link it down below. It was really wonderful. But one of them even outright said that she usually does not ask for much money at all, not nearly what she's worth. And they had a conversation back and forth throughout the video, but how that's really, I say not good, quote unquote. In the freelance world, if you're willing to go for super low rates, lower than what you're worth, because that work will make that company so much more money, is that they can either see that and just continue to pay you at that really low rate if you partner with them again and you don't negotiate again, or they might start thinking that they can pay other people that because this person took this on for like 25 bucks or something. It's like, no. Freelance writing world, and I imagine just all of freelancing, has struggled with this problem and will continue to struggle with this problem, as some people want to break into the industry, so you're willing for a time to go off of low rates, and then just there's all this murkiness. So anyways, negotiation. I always try and see where the person's head is at and then negotiate a little bit above that. One of the things I've had to train myself is just to ask, because if you just ask for more, oftentimes the service you're providing is worth more than you think it is, so always ask. This is one of those that if any like author tubers need help when they're doing sponsored content asking about stuff, like hit me up, I'll be happy to tell you the rates and things. I've done some where it's a CPM based thing where it's based on however many views that video got, and we negotiated that rate, that number ahead of time. Sometimes that rate is based on historical data, so how your past 5-10 videos did over a 2-week period, and they'll just look at that times the rate, and then that's going to be your base payout, whether this video did really good or really bad. And other times, if it's with a product, sometimes it'll be product plus money, sometimes it'll be product plus more money or plus less money or whatever. So anyways, it's all kind of variable, but I try to negotiate not only what I think is fair, but what I would, the same rate I'd want someone else to get in my position, if that makes sense. After the negotiation is done, it is time to sign all of the things. And oftentimes after the contract is signed, they will give me the kind of deliverables where they will have specific phrases they may want me to say. Usually that closing line and like click the link down below for X% off or whatever, or use this code for whatever. Every sponsorship I've taken, I've gotten to choose what video I wanted to do, which is really important to me. It was just videos oftentimes that I already had planned. Sometimes if I have a good relationship with the sponsor, I'll just ask them like, here, I have 3 or 4 ideas if you have a preference. But all the sponsorships have also wanted me to talk about the product or the service in my own words, which is even more important to me. But they'll often give you a slide deck or any kind of visuals they may or may not want you to use that is branded content. After that, it's just time for me to do the video, film, edit, upload, and then there's approval time. The only downside with this film, edit, upload thing is basically that I have to get the video ready 3 to 5 days before I expect to officially publish it, because in that time I'll need approval and potentially will have to change something. I've only had to change something once. The only problem with the 3 to 5 days is that at the same time, if I'm waiting on this video, for me, because I like to upload 2 to 3 times a week, even though it's been a little bit less recently, that still means that I have to have another video. So you're kind of working on more videos at once, as this one's in a holding period. So after this one's done, you know, you have a bit of a break, but it's just kind of convoluted in this time when you might have to have one video ready to go on the day that I actually finished the sponsored video, but I can't post that, so I have to wait. And then in that time, there's another one. So yeah, after the approval, there's the actual posting of the video, and then you get paid. I think the earliest I've been paid for a video has been 21 days after the video was posted. Oftentimes there's a delay, so I won't get paid until a month later or even a month and a half sometimes. At this point, most of the work I do is getting paid off of previous month's work in this month. So that's a whole other thing, is just kind of planning and looking at the money coming in advance. It's important to me to only share products and stuff that I like and actively use, though I haven't always been actively using the product before they reached out to me. So it's always like I tried it and liked it and was like, okay. Part of that is also I've never reached out to a company. I have no idea what that looks like, but I know other people who've had really good success with that. But for now, that's how sponsored content works for me. Yeah. Okay, so favorite Pokemon, Zapdos. How do you figure out which agents to query? Use Query Tracker. I know that's the one everyone says, and for very good reason. The one time that I queried before, that's what I used, and I actually just have an annual subscription that I'm still subscribed to, because I also think it's really cool just to keep up with the industry in that way, and it's not that expensive for the year. It's so much easier to figure out what they're looking for, if they're open to submissions, who they currently represent, like, it has everything. But if you really don't want to do Query Tracker, then I'd go with the old tried and true, which is usually like looking in the back of the book. Oh, weird. Like in this one, there's actually a credits where it has the agents listed out. I've never actually seen it like this before. That's very cool. Anyways, usually they're banked. And then you can Google them, find their agency, and kind of go through it that way. But I cannot recommend Query Tracker enough. What is the current number of projects that I am working on? And here's where I'm going to make a distinction. I'm going to call it actively working on. Like I'm doing the revision and I'm doing the edit and it's not in the waiting period. Project Death. Favorite Halloween film. I'm a sucker for the classics. It's Hocus Pocus. Oh, where's my mug? I think it's in the dishwasher. It's Hocus Pocus. If you could only read or only write for the rest of your life, what would you do? This is such a mean question. Like, how dare you? I feel like I would attempt to consume stories in another way. So like I would watch and I would have to write. I feel like that one's so hard because I feel like the writing is just flows out. Not that I think my writing is like more important or better than anything I'm reading, just that like physically not being able to write stories would be. How dare you? What is your favorite book that you've read in 2021? For nonfiction, I really enjoyed John Green's The Anthropocene Reviewed. I just finished that one. For fiction, beach read, I read that at the very beginning of the year, but it is still one of my favorite reads. Mort. Yeah. I would have to review my list of books. Let me see. The story graph. I'm actually keeping track of my reading this year pretty well. I still need to log The Anthropocene Reviewed, but I have currently read 24 books this year. Oh, so I met my challenge. I did it. I currently read 24 books. Let me see if the ones I logged. Zen in the Art of Writing for nonfiction was really good. Spirit Hunters. Oh my god. At this point, it's just me listing out my favorites of a lot of good books I read. I did really like My Not So Perfect Life. Steering the Craft was so good. No offense. Oh, I did a reread for the basket. Oh, I finished Mistborn. The first trilogy this year. Did I really? I've read a lot of good books this year, I guess, is in conclusion. How do you transform ideas into a real plot? I think you have to do it kind of like you're a kid again, or imagine what a kid would ask you, which is just why a bunch of times. So for me, I usually have an idea being like the character comes to me first, and I oftentimes have the catalyst is in my brain where I'm like, here is their immediate before, and then this is they're off on their journey, and then the end comes next. And so then it's just a lot of whys or hows. And those whys and hows are what fill in the plot points along the way. When I've worked with my friends before and they can't quite figure out the plot, I find it's often that they haven't asked themselves enough why yet, or it's like they don't have the problem. I have friends who are really good at the world building and have the initial characters in mind, but they don't know, like, there's not a problem. Does that make sense? So if that's you, where you're like, okay, well I have the beginnings where all the characters are going to be and I know I want him to be eventually like, you know, this grand sorcerer at the end, well then, but what's the problem that he's going to face along the way to get there? That's when you have to just start throwing random shit. You're like, should he have a nemesis? Why should he have a nemesis? Why would that nemesis choose him? What does he have? And then you just build it all off from there. So lots and lots of questions. What is going on with my dogs?
What do you think? What do you think, huh? What?
Okay, sausage. Time for a pup break. If your pets were D&D classes, which would they be? I think Zelda. I'm gonna say she'd be a bard, if only because she likes to woo so much. So clearly she's got a song in her, you know? I think Vin is probably a rogue. She's very good at the stealth and trickery. Really takes after her namesake. And I would guess that Buffy would be a ranger based on how she stalks the perimeter of the house. But I love this question so much. I am gonna go ask the boyfriend what he thinks too. If our animals were D&D classes, which would each be?
Assassin,
Assassin.
Paladin, and Bard.
Someone else asked if I've ever thought about writing a D&D campaign, and I have not yet, but I think that would be really cool to dabble in eventually, as I feel like I'm still really learning how it all works. I don't know that I'd feel comfortable with it, but someone else asked if I watch any D&D shows like Critical Role. I've seen some before, but I actually want to start watching some or listening to some. My brother told me about this Star Wars one where they tell in the form of a podcast. Two of the guys spun off and do one of my current favorite podcasts, The Bill Buds. So I want to go back to that Star Wars campaign and maybe give that a listen. Do you sometimes have trouble world building because it doesn't feel real enough to you? For sure. My world building always comes in waves, so like as I'm going over Project Death right now, I'm rereading it, I had notes where it's like I need to figure out the structure of the matriarchs better. That's something that's really not explained, but would really help to give, you know, would really help to build the world up a little bit more, to explain it just a little bit. And I want to add more description in as they're traveling. I have the like feeling of the traveling, but the actual visuals I don't have, and I think that could really help reinforce this desert climate and how excited they'll be when they get to the capital and see flowing water again for the first time, actually a fountain of flowing water, which seems so excessive in comparison with back in the sticks. So I just think if I really help paint the picture better than I currently have now, it'll flesh out the world. And yeah, anyway, so I have to do it in waves because yes, oftentimes the world doesn't feel real enough to me yet. I have to live with the characters for a while before it gets really real to me. Although I will say what helps with that sometimes is just traveling to a new place, or even just sitting on the opposite side of something that I've sat at for a while. You know how you've been in like a classroom and you sit in that same seat all year and then all of a sudden you switch for some reason, or someone else took your seat or whatever else, and you just see the classroom through different eyes, through a different angle. It's that kind of thing that I try and use to remind myself and go through all of my senses and how I would describe something. So it's kind of like a description slash world building exercise, but it's something that honestly I should do more often. Why is green the best color? Now, in part, this question is asked because I put it on the screen for examples of questions that people could ask, but someone else asked what shade of green is my favorite. And I love anything from like this foresty green to like that green specifically. I do like a mint green, but like more of a bluey mint green. Love a turquoise. Yes. And green is the best color because it represents nature and creativity and all of the good things. I just really like green. Someone asked if I plan on taking any other masterclasses. I'm actually looking at the courses now because yes, I do plan on taking more masterclasses. I really want to take Roxanne Gay's and Issa Rae's, Aaron Sorkin's might be cool. David Sedaris, Amy Tan, Margaret Atwood, Shonda Rhimes, yes. Judy Bloom. Anyways, yes, there's a lot that I would like to take. Comment down below, let me know if you've taken any of the master classes. Let me know if there's any that you'd especially like to take. I also get free guest passes that I can give out occasionally, so I will leave a link down below. It's a first come first serve, but yeah. I also am thinking about taking some of the cooking ones. I really enjoyed the wilderness survival one, and I think just other ones that might be more relevant to my characters and learning about that than necessarily the writing itself, even though I love the writing ones. Favorite kind of bubble tea? Once again, how dare you ask me this question? I change my my order frequently, but anytime I go to a place for the first time, I need a classic milk tea with boba. And that's kind of how I judge places, is on their classic milk tea. But I love a good Thai tea. I love fruity black teas. Less so fruity green teas, but I can do some of those too. I'm mostly a tapioca pearl boba person, but you know, coffee jelly, sometimes like that instead too. Anyways, I like all of the bubble tea. Top 5 comfort shows. Ooh, Psych, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec. Honestly, some of my trash reality TV that I can just have on in the background and shut my brain off. It's comforting in that way to have the noise, but not having to totally focus on it. I'm trying to think of the ones I've rewatched the most. I'm rewatching Psych right now. If I can come up with a 5th, I'll flash it here. I feel like I'm getting so close. How many are left in black? Do you meditate or visualize? And I don't really. Sometimes when I'm journaling, that feels kind of meditative, but it's not quite meditating. And sometimes when I'm out on walks or runs, that feels quite meditative, but once again, it's not actually meditating. And I actually don't really do a whole lot of visualization. I think in part because it's very easy for me to get lost in that visualization and get lost in the daydream aspect rather than the like very purposeful sort of visualization. So I don't. But I'd love to hear if you do. Favorite pizza topping is all of them at once. Pilot high. You know those like create your own pizza places? It's me putting like all the veggies on and all the meats and all the cheeses. Yum. But I will say specifically I'm a fan of a spicy Hawaiian. Did you play sports as a kid or in high school? Yes, I played all the sports. I love a lot of sports. I did gymnastics a lot growing up. I also did tennis. I tried track. I tried volleyball. I played a lot of them. I enjoyed as I got older. I was working my corporate job doing like recreational kickball leagues, beer kickball leagues, stuff like that. So I'm here for all the sports. Although to be fair, it was not a good sports day for me last weekend. My college football team lost. My footy football team lost. The F1 race was heart-wrenching. It's fine. What is the best way to meet writer friends that will stick around? That's a really good question. I think sometimes it's hard to even just find other people who write. I think the internet can be a wonderful way to do that, but I'd also recommend connecting over something besides just the writing. So whether that's sharing your favorite books, your favorite TV shows, the things that go into stories, so it doesn't feel like you're really stepping outside of your comfort zone, but it's a good way to get to know someone and kind of go from there. The plus side I found with doing AuthorTube is that for the people who I've watched their videos, I can usually tell if we're going to click, and in person that has been the case each time, where I was like, man, I really love this person's videos, I think they're so cool. Or I've like been in live streams or I've been in the chat and I'm like, I just feel like I vibe with this person, and so far of all the people I've met, I've not ever been wrong. I did vibe with that person. I think when you're also talking about writer friends that will stick around, writing is one of the things that, as we all know, is actually a lot harder than we think it can be when we first start. There's a lot you have to learn along the way, and because everyone can write, or so it feels, there's a lot of people who want to dabble in it and then never really touch it again, or a lot of people who are like, oh, I've always wanted to write a book or something, and like it's different than the people who are actively trying to write a book. So I would just try and see if the people that you're talking to have the same goals as you, no matter what those goals are. If they're just hobbies, then that's great too, but if you want writer friends to stick around, you'll just want to make sure that you have similar-ish goals. How is embroidery going? It is going slowly. I'm still working on the spooky one. All I've done is the eyes on my little ghosties, but I plan to complete this soon, and or at this point it's going to be a full October task. I also bought a hat the other day that I'm going to attempt to embroider as well. I think I want to do something like writer themed, but I don't quite know yet what I want to do. It might just say write or writer, or I might do like a quill and ink kind of thing. I don't know. I haven't decided. How are you today? Doing all right. Allergies are still kind of kicking my butt, as they were yesterday when I was filming, but I have taken my pills, so hopefully it will get better. The one downside of fall. Someone asked how I plan my writing year, and I actually want to go over and make this a full video because I love that question. I've always talked about how I kind of plan my writing years around NaNoWriMo, and that was more true in the past than it is now. But as NaNoWriMo is approaching, I do have more of my writing calendar filled in for this year, so I can start looking ahead for next year and planning in advance. So anyways, so excited. I'll make that a separate video. How does being an adult work? I wish I could tell you. What made you want to get a cat, and how is Vin doing? Vin is doing wonderful. I had that vlog where I was chronicling taking her to the vet because she went into heat earlier than expected. So we got her all taken care of. She's now fully recovered from that surgery and she is doing wonderful. I always said if I was gonna get a cat, it would be a little black cat because I think they're so cute. But I really only had Duke growing up, and I always thought of myself as more of a dog person, but I love all animals. It was just because I'd only ever had dogs and I didn't have a lot of friends growing up who had cats. So it wasn't really until my best friend that I met in university had cats, loved cats, and I grew to love her cats, and then I cat sat for David and Callie, my brother and sister-in-law, and got to be with their cats, that I was like, you know what? I think I really would like a cat. So we really lucked out that one of the boyfriend's work friends was fostering cats. And so we got to adopt a little kitten, and that little kitten has been, and she is so cute. How did you know it was time to move in with your boyfriend? I think in part, we've talked about this, and I talked about this recently with Alvin when I got to meet him in person. I do think that the pandemic sped up the process because we'd only been dating for a little bit before then. My battery died. But both of us had lived with partners before, and we were a little bit older, and not to be like a when you know kind of thing, but basically when you know, or so it felt to us. Otherwise, having lived with a partner before where it didn't work out, we're fine for a while, but it was one of the clues to me, at least, that it was not the forever that I imagined, for many other reasons, of course, but that living together was an eye-opener for me. If I was giving other people advice, I'd say have a backup plan, even if y'all are moving in together, in part because saving money would be really great. Have a backup plan saved up because it can be really hard to live with a previous partner once you are no longer in that partnership. Current Starbucks order, as it is fall. It's currently the pumpkin cream cold brew, extra pumpkin cream, light ice. And because I can just make plain old cappuccinos at home, and also if I wanted to use like a sweetener, I can make them at home really easily, I tend to only go for like the fancy schmancy drinks from Starbucks that is a little bit harder for me to make by myself. But if I need something tried and true and I'm out and about, you can't go wrong with a blonde vanilla latte. If you could only write one genre forever, which would it be and why? And first off, again, how dare you? I feel like as I'm getting better at mysteries slowly, there's something so exciting about a good mystery. And then almost like fantasy, you can... Fantasy is almost more about setting in some instances than the actual genre of the story you're telling, like the actual type of story, because you could do YA fantasy, you could do fantasy that's actually a heist, like Mistborn, you do fantasy mystery, romance fantasy. I think I may have changed my mind. It might be fantasy. As a lifelong and lover of dabbling, as a lifelong dabbler, a lover of dabbling, as a dabbler, all of these questions, if I could only do one thing, I'm like, but why? What part of the home reno are you most excited about? So actually at this point we're really close to having most of the house more or less done. Like it's all little things now. I think the most labor intensive part that we did, as I documented, was just painting the whole house. This room itself used to be moon room, and my goodness, it is a different room entirely. I'm excited for the new toilets that are gonna come in soon. Thankfully, we needed them, as it was always one or both not working. It really does at this point feel like our house, a new house, not the previous owner's house. So I don't know exactly when that transition happened, but a year in, that's how it's feeling. For the home reno that we're still gonna do at some point, painting that kitchen is the last place that needs paint. But it's gonna need a lot of work. It has wallpaper that either needs to be pulled down or gonna have to texture over it. We're gonna have to texture any either way. Anyways, that's how I feel. How much has your writing improved since quitting the day job? I have to imagine a lot. I don't know if I can try and find some of the writing I had back when I was working my day job, but I think honestly it's just the amount of hours and time that I've been able to put into it since. I don't know that the improvement would have happened in under any less hours. It's just that now I'm not having this, so I could do more concentrated. Does that make sense? I'm sure it does to everyone working a day job or everyone currently in school and stuff too. It's just an amount of time that you're able to dedicate to something is really the difference maker. I also feel like I'm at this point, the more you learn, the more you realize how much there is left to learn. And so now I can tell that I've grown a lot, but it's kind of seeing just all the ways I can continue to grow, which is really exciting, but is definitely not something that I had gotten to that point before. The final question is, how do I go about setting up goals? Which is a wonderful question because I've tried multiple different methods and am in fact thinking about potentially returning to an old method. I can't remember if I talked about this before, but I've been planning my goals sort of monthly. I don't plan to do any work on the weekends, and I still usually end up doing a little bit, but I don't plan for it. And now, both my allergies and the migraines coming back with more ferocity, I'm back to basically taking a whole week out of my schedule, my monthly schedule for stuff that I can do. So it's easier to just not plan to do work for a week and take that into account early on. So anyways, I have a couple new methods I'm wanting to try, but please do comment down below and let me know how you set goals. I would be very interested. How do you make them SMART goals? Or have you just completely given up on setting goals for writing? Which is also very valid. Also, my hair is wet, so I'm waiting for it to dry, sorry. But that is the final question for this fun, silly, random Q&A. Please do comment down below. Let me know what your favorite pizza topping is, what your favorite Pokemon character is, or any of these other questions that I answered that you would also like to answer. I would be very curious to know. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon with a new video. Bye.